Welcome to Sheep Suit, the home of grazable Christian thought. Today's brain graze, insufferable churches. What I mean by is insufferable isn't the doctrine or the people or the sermon. What I mean is the use of media in an ever more abusive, dare I say, way. And rather than go on some lengthy discourse, I'm just going to describe 3 examples of churches I visited in the last 6 months or so and what I experienced. Church number 1, stringing big stringy lights back and forth directly behind the speaker on the back of the stage. These are these lights that are, they're like Christmas lights, only they're bigger. They're used for outlining the roofs on a building, perhaps in a festive part of town, or a building that wants to look inviting. So you use these lights to outline the porch or the roof or something like that. But these lights were strung back and forth on the back of the stage behind the preacher. And so I'm sitting there watching this guy preach a sermon, and I'm staring into these lights, and after a few minutes I realize these lights are burning little holes in my retina, because you're not supposed to stare at them. They're supposed to provide atmosphere, and they provide light, but you're not supposed to look at them. How many light sources are you supposed to look directly into anyway? That doesn't seem the way light works. Second, there was a church that did them one better. They have a 10-foot tall by 20-foot wide LED screen behind their stage facing towards the audience, and it's used to project messages and things before the organized part of the assembly actually begins, as people are coming in and sitting down. When the preacher started to preach, they changed that screen to solid red. So I'm getting more and more annoyed by this sermon, and it's not the sermon, it's the fact that the preacher is standing in front of a 10-foot tall by 20-foot wide solid red screen. Who in the world does that? Well, they do. So I got up and left, and I walked up to one of the staff on the way out, and I said that in so many words, I can't stand staring into a 10-foot by 20-foot red screen right behind your preacher. And the staff person said, "Well, I'm sorry this doesn't work for you." And I just walked out really fast, because the alternative might have been rather unsheepish. So I got out of there, and I'm never going back, of course. Well, there you go, a jump cut. There was something I thought was right in front of me, and it was on the floor, and I had to go look for it because I accidentally knocked it on the floor. A prop I need. Well, anyway, the third example is a church that used sound in a really abusive way. That's the only way I can explain it. I went to this church where they had a worship band, and the sound was 85 decibels. Music has gotten so loud in churches that I put a decibel meter app on my phone, and I actually take decibel readings. And I hardly ever go to a church unless I know it's a cappella church, a Church of Christ. They're safe. But just about all churches have these worship bands with the music cranked up incredibly loud. And so I always go to churches with these, you can see them, these high fidelity earplugs. They cost about $10 or $20. They're reusable, and they cut the decibels without cutting the frequencies. So you hear all the frequencies of the music, but you cut about 10 decibels off the volume. And that's a lot. I wear those to rock concerts because I like to buy VIP seats and sit in the front rows and actually see my favorite musicians while I listen to them. And the sound can be very loud. In fact, I've measured the sound at the rock concerts I go to, and it's about 83 decibels. And I measured the sound of my home sound system, my entertainment center, when I crank it up as loud as I want to listen to it, and it's about 80 decibels. Well, this church was 85 decibels. That's really loud. It really did sound like if I wasn't wearing those earplugs, I would sustain hearing damage. And I actually did get my hearing damaged at a concert about 4 years ago, maybe. The Simple Minds, you know, won't you come see about me? Something like that. Anyway, they were fantastic, but I didn't wear my high fidelity earplugs. And I came out of that with a case of tinnitus, which I thought was permanent, and I prayed about it, and I prayed for healing, and it took about 2 years, but it did heal. As far as I can tell, it's just about gone. And what a blessing, because that didn't need to heal. That could have stuck with me for the rest of my life. So I always take high fidelity earphones whenever I think I'm going to be subjected to loud noises. And my primary source of really loud noises are Christian churches, of all places, becoming dangerous places to go for my hearing. The other thing this church did, which was amazingly annoying, was during the sermon, they had a member of their worship team play the same chord progression on a keyboard, synthesizer keyboard, over and over and over and over and over for like the whole 20-25 minute thing. Amazing how annoying that is. That's an even more egregious version of these churches where during the prayer they have a synthesized note just playing in the background. It's like we have to be continually hypnotized by electronics or we can't pay attention. It makes me wonder if churches have become just vast hypnotherapy centers. It's not about worshiping God, it's about being hypnotized by an elite few people. But I don't know, maybe that should be the subject of another message. That's all for now. Churches have become insufferable on a minute-by-minute basis. And that's sad. I hope it can change someday and things can start going back a little bit so that the people who show up are actually respected enough to not be treated that way. That's all for now. Keep the wool out of your eyes.